Hello, everyone. My name is Joanne Frank, and I'm the President and CEO of the Center for Active Design and Active Design Advisors, Inc., the operators of Fitwel. Welcome to this year's Best in Building Health Leadership Awards. Thank you for tuning in to this year's celebration, and a special thank you to the Leadership Advisory Board member, Veneto Realty Trust. We are broadcasting live from Veneto's Pen 1, and we are so happy to be in this amazing space today. Best in Building Health 2022 is a chance for all of us to come together and celebrate this year's achievement by the growing Fitwel community. But it is also an opportunity to reflect on the road ahead, on the challenges in equity and implementation facing our industry over the next decade. In today's program, you'll hear from members of our amazing team, as well as some special guest speakers who will be talking about key topics such as why building health is a business imperative, who is driving demand, what metrics are defining impact, what it means that the market is moving faster than policy, and how is health a market differentiator, especially as it relates to ESG investment. And as this event is called Best in Building Health, I'd like to kick off the program by answering the question I'm asked all the time, and that is, what is a healthy building? Good place to start. So the definition of a healthy building can be summed up by these 3 steps. A building, and this applies to sites as well, must address the needs of occupants and the communities that it serves, use evidence-based design and operational strategies to promote occupant health, and have a measurable impact on the health and well-being of the occupants. All buildings and neighborhoods impact the health of their occupants, whether you know it or not. Even small incremental improvements towards a healthy building have a measurable impact on the buildings, on all. All buildings and communities, no matter their age, location, asset type, can be optimized to meet the needs and demands of their occupants. In this context, it's important to understand the incredible work this year's Best in Building Health winners are doing to advance the healthy building movement. They are transforming the marketplace by doubling down on human-centric practices for a healthier, equitable future, one rooted in a commitment to strengthening buildings and communities for generations to come. Last year, we talked about meeting the moment, very importantly. This year, we plan to turn that necessary responsiveness into lasting, meaningful change. This year, the Center for Active Design, CAD to all of us, sorry, CFAD, not CAD, CFAD, is turning 10, and Fitwel is turning 5. The healthy building movement has come a long way in a decade, accelerated, of course, by the COVID-19 pandemic. We have seen progress towards market transformation in a couple of fundamental ways. Health has shifted from a nice to have, a way to positively differentiate your assets, to a must have, as COVID has shown how health is a risk to real estate value. This is a game changer in the way investors view real estate, shifting focus from the buildings in a portfolio to the occupants in those buildings. It has become abundantly clear you have to protect and promote the health of your occupants, tenants, employees, guests, to invite them back into workplaces, shops, and hospitality. And this is the largest change that we see for our industry. Individuals, the people, the occupants, whatever you want to call them, are demanding healthy buildings, not as a luxury, but as their highest priority. Just last week, the White House demonstrated their commitment to enhance occupant health using the built environment through their Clean Air in Buildings Challenge. Given our mission to prioritize public health across the built environment through our products, including the viral response module, which mitigates the risk of infectious respiratory disease, we are excited that the built environment has taken center stage in the conversation about health and support the White House's focus on safeguarding health by optimizing buildings. And so, without further ado, let's celebrate this year's Best in Building Health winners, an extraordinary roster of leaders and projects that exemplify a holistic, integrated, human-centric approach. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the first of our team. Lauren Moss is our Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development. She's going to present the first awards. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Joanna. I'm thrilled to be here today to celebrate all of our winners and to talk to you about one in particular that I've had the pleasure of getting to know and work with since joining Fitwel last year. I want to set the stage a little, following up on Joanna's comments, as this winner understands our mission, the global health movement, and the impact on health on their occupants through their facilities and in their communities. Here's what we know about the healthy building movement. Health sits at the intersection of each of the pillars of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Pre-COVID-19, demand for ESG considerations was highest among commercial properties and workspaces, but now the demand among residential properties is increasing, which will only increase demand for consensus regarding what to measure. Global ESG assets are on track to exceed $50 trillion by 2025. That is 1/3 of the global economy. And third-party healthy building certifications will increasingly be relied upon to offer a viable framework for consistently tracking and integrating health-related ESG metrics. So what does that mean for all of us? If ESG is the ongoing market driver, accelerated because of COVID-19, we need to ensure health is an integral, continuous part of that conversation. We will continue to work with our research and industry advisors and the real estate industry to coalesce around health metrics that adequately reflect equitable access to health-promoting environments, and in turn support global market transformation towards full integration of health metrics into each pillar of ESG. Our winner today, Harrison Street, not only understands and recognizes all of this, but they have committed to building lasting, equitable change. In 2019, Harrison Street and Fitwel collaborated to establish the senior housing scorecard for assisted living, independent living, and memory care communities, with the goal of helping owners optimize their properties to promote the health and wellness of both the residents and the employees. This unique focus on all occupants is what makes this scorecard applicable and impactful. So I'm excited to share that just last month, the Springs at Greer Gardens became the very first property to achieve Fitwel certification using the senior housing scorecard. And last year, Harrison Street demonstrated this commitment further by expanding their partnership with us. Harrison Street, already a Fitwel champion and a leadership advisory board member, pledged to implement Fitwel certification across the majority of its existing portfolio of student housing, senior housing, medical office, and life science properties in order to meet the demand for healthy buildings. But the reason that we are honoring Harrison Street today with this special award rests on their commitment to social equity and how their specific actions and strategies impact their communities and occupants. Within their DLC and Brightview portfolios in particular, Harrison Street's focus on implementing the strategies around access to water and exercise, healthy food options, public transportation, and universal accessibility allow us to measure their social equity impact and show them as a leader in this space. Congratulations to Harrison Street on achieving special recognition for leadership and social equity, and for your other Best in Building Health awards this year, including the greatest number of benchmark projects in 2021 and 2021's highest scoring project for Community Site version 2.1 in the design category. And thank you for meeting the moment and your demonstrated commitment to improving the lives of residents through building health strategies and programs. And we actually have Maura Kelly, Vice President of Impact at Harrison Street, here today to accept this award. Maura? Now I'd actually like to turn it over to Jill Brose. She's the Managing Director and Chief Impact and Sustainability Officer at Harrison Street, who will be joining us virtually to share more.
Hello, thank you, Lauren. My apologies for not being there with you in person today, but as you saw, I'm well represented by Maura Kelly, who, as you mentioned, is the person who heads up Harrison Street social initiatives. So on behalf of the entire Harrison Street family, we are humbled and honored to receive the Best in Building Health Leadership Award, specifically for social equity leadership. So why is being selected for this award so meaningful to us? And what are some of the things that we are doing as it relates to social equity or Or maybe to put it another way, the S in ESG. So first, let me explain my role. I am the Chief Impact Officer for Harrison Street, and I, along with a fully dedicated team, of course, including Maura, we're responsible for our ESG strategy, its execution, its reporting, and promoting of both what our firm does as well as our investments, their impact that they have on the world. And all of the factors of ESG are a priority to us, but the S is of particular importance, just given the asset classes we serve. As Lauren just mentioned, things like senior living communities and student housing. So I wanted to share with you a few of our initiatives which highlight our focus on the S. So Lauren just mentioned this, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about health and well-being and talk about our partnership with the Center for Active Design, or CFAD, and really the Fitwel standard itself. So as she said, several years ago, we were looking for a healthy building standard that could support the unique needs our asset classes have. We are in different asset classes. We're not in traditional office or traditional multifamily. So a lot of things that are developed come out and serve those needs first. In some cases, sometimes we're an afterthought. So we wanted to work with the CFAD team about creating a standard that was just as strong. It didn't compromise in any way the intent of the standard, but it was really specific to our asset classes. And we are thrilled that CFAD had that vision. It really fits with their mission of healthy buildings for all. So while we were proactive in approaching them, they were so willing and able to work with us to design this standard for senior living, which frankly had not been previously considered. So by leveraging our expertise in the industry and then pulling the research that they had and running prototype programs at our communities, this led to this new standard that Lauren mentioned. It's one that promotes the establishment of living environments that are optimized for the well-being of both senior residents and the staff working in those communities. Individuals have very different needs. And as mentioned, the scorecard became commercially available in February of 2021. And immediately thereafter, we came out and said, we are publicly committing to pursue the Fitwel certification, not just for senior living communities, but for all applicable properties. We're doing this because we want all of our buildings to meet a certain standard. And frankly, we feel it's a differentiator for them. And then at the end of 2021, all in, we had 224 certification projects to date, and we are incredibly pleased to state that we are the first in the world to obtain Fitwel certification in both senior and student housing asset classes. And then moving forward, we are committing for all new funds to achieve Fitwel certification in at least 80% of all occupied properties. Now, another aspect of health and well-being that we take very seriously is mental health. So another social initiative that we're executing upon is we have engaged with a digital health company, and this company utilizes artificial intelligence to predict one's cognitive health. And they do it via listening to how people speak. They do it via narrative language. And so how it works is participants are shown a picture or a drawing, and then they take a couple of minutes to describe what's going on in that picture. The technology then analyzes their speech pattern to determine if there's any cognitive issues that are present either now or might be in the near term. And this company's work was primarily, and frankly is still primarily focused on the pharmaceutical industry. But like in my first example, we were able to work with them to adapt it to our needs and have successfully used this tool in several of our senior living communities to detect dementia, risk of falls, loss of independence, and really just overall cognitive health. And then in student housing, where unfortunately there is so much stress going on in student environments, the plans are to use this same tool to conduct regular wellness checks for stress, anxiety, and depression. And where someone might be suffering from some sort of an episode, some sort of crisis, ideally we can perform some triage and really get them the help they need when they need it. But I also want to say that not every social initiative or social program has to be high tech. The final social initiative or program that I want to share with you, it illustrates our ability to cross-pollinate amongst the generations we serve. It's a program we call Student Care. And this is an initiative that allows students that are living near senior housing communities to participate in both work and volunteer opportunities at the community site. They're able to build and interact, they build these relationships and interact with their elders. And frankly, both generations benefit in a multitude of ways from this program. They truly learn from one another and they create these strong relationship bonds. And for this program to be successful, we also engaged with an on-demand healthcare marketplace that set up the registration process, it conducted background checks, and it facilitated all of the matchmaking amongst the students and the jobs and the shift availability for work or volunteer opportunities. We know that the two generations that suffer the most from loneliness are students and seniors. So to be able to provide a program that supports and encourages and emphasizes intergenerational connections has really proven to be beneficial to each population's mental health. Now, although all of these activities I just talked about are happening at the property level, I have to mention, we don't operate any of our buildings. That's all done by a third party. All we do is invest in them. So the logical question is, why do we do this? I mean, what's really the upside for doing these social programs when we're at arm's length from the actual operations? Well, Harrison Street's tagline is making an impact. So, of course, we want to make a positive impact on the assets we invest in and the corresponding communities they serve. It's the right thing to do. But beyond that, these activities create differentiators for our properties and for the people who are living and working in them. We also believe, and early research is proving this out, that by being engaged in the commitments and programs such as the ones I've just discussed, it brings measurable and significant value to the properties themselves. It's truly a do good and you will perform well activity. So again, our sincerest gratitude for selecting us for this incredible award. The social programs and initiatives we are involved in are critical to who we are, and to be recognized for these efforts is really, it's wonderful confirmation that we must be doing something right. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jill. It's really wonderful to hear all about the amazing work you're doing to implement health promoting strategies for senior housing. My name is Danilin Arciaga, and I'm the Director of Certification. Before announcing our other special recognition award winner, I would like to take a moment to pull up the slides and, along with my colleague Karen Chen, who is our head of digital product, recognize a few of the companies that have earned some remarkable achievements during this past year. First on our list is Cushman & Wakefield, the company receiving the most awards this year. They have been a Fitwel champion since 2017, and since then, they've certified projects all over the world. We are honoring them today for being the consultant who supported the greatest number of certifications in 2021. They are also winning awards for most people impacted across building scorecards, for highest square footage, and for having the highest scoring built project in 2021 under the single tenant V2.1 scorecard. Plus, their very own Rachel Shipton is being recognized as the Fitwel Ambassador associated with the most certified projects of all time and will be speaking on our panel later in the program.
Next up is another Fitwel champion, Barings Real Estate. By utilizing the efficiencies of the Fitwel online platform, they were able to maximize their impact, earning them the distinction of building owner with the greatest number of certifications in 2021. The tenant with the greatest number of certifications in 2021 is Meta, formerly known as Facebook. Meta is committed to promoting employee health and wellness by providing amenities such as fitness areas, treadmill desks, and campus walking paths. Their campus cafe and break areas highlight smart food choices and universally accessible water bottle filling stations. They continue to promote a healthy work environment that encourages employees to stay active while also building community. Up next is the recipient that is taking home 2 awards this year. Being Living with Stephen Winter Associates has won for most people impacted across site scorecards for their work on Peter Cooper Village in Stuyvesant, the largest residential development in New York City. Vertically integrated owner-operator Being Living, a Blackstone portfolio company, and sustainable building services consulting firm Stephen Winter Associates have worked together to continually improve building health and performance for the development's 56 buildings with over 11,000 apartments, This Fitwel certified property is positively impacting almost 30,000 residents. Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town also wins for the 2021 highest scoring build project using the community site being 2.1 scorecard. And the company with the greatest impact on building health for highest acreage goes to Fidelity Investments. Fidelity became a Fitwel champion in the spring of 2021. To date, they have certified 55% of their portfolio and are aiming to certify 100% of their portfolio this year in 2022.
And finally, we would like to recognize the teams that stood out for their implementation of our viral response module in 2021, colloquially known as the VRM. In response to COVID-19, we developed the Fitwel VRM to set the global standard for safeguarding occupant health and wellness, which offers the premier evidence-based third-party certification to mitigate viral transmission in buildings. We have several teams that stood out in this category for leading the way and applying the VRM at scale. So we have a two-way tie for the highest scoring viral response module. The first is the Meridian Group with their consultant Palladino and Company for the Meridian Group Portfolio Module. The Meridian Group is among the early adopters of the VRM and set the bar high. And just to note, this is their second year winning this award. The Stock Exchange of Thailand is the other highest scoring viral response module achieved by the Stock Exchange of Thailand and SCG Building with Living Care Consulting. This impressive award marks their commitment to creating an inclusive space that prioritizes the well-being of all occupants. Boston Properties is both a Fitwel Leadership Advisory Board member and a Fitwel champion. During the pandemic, they wanted to assure occupants and employees that their health was being taken seriously. They took the step of rapidly rolling out the VRM to attain entity-level certification, which they then implemented across their portfolio. This year, Boston Properties won for the most assets that achieved the viral response approval. Congratulations to these companies who have not only met the moment, but are making lasting change. It is now our pleasure to introduce Sonia Treweiler, our Vice President of Marketing and Communications, to talk about one of our Leadership Award recipients.
Thank you, Donalyn and Karen. I'm excited to be here today to introduce our special Leadership Award winner. Our relationship with Quadrille Property Group began with their interest in certifying office properties in 2018. Quadrille realized the positive health impact that could be achieved by implementing Fitwel's research-based strategies. Using the Fitwel platform, their property managers were able to evaluate and prioritize healthy building practices at their properties. They have continued to measure the impact of improved occupant health on the platform and among their operators in areas such as indoor air quality awareness, incorporating physical activity throughout the day, and participation in engagement programming. Then they really took it to the next level by supporting the research that has always defined us as a research-driven, data-driven organization. First, in 2019, in collaboration with Quadrille, we released the Office Guide to Building Health, which offers a practical roadmap from ideas to action, supporting tenants and landlords in their endeavor to create healthy, welcoming offices, regardless of budget, capacity, or expertise. And that partnership continues, focused on how research and data impacts occupants in the bottom line. In January of this year, we released our co-authored report titled A Better Box, which is about optimizing industrial spaces for human health and well-being. The research focused on the needs of the industrial market to optimize their spaces, optimize their productivity, and retain and protect their employees. The findings resulted in 3 overarching recommendations for optimization, which are to maximize location and site accessibility, design functional and supportive interiors, and create spaces that promote productivity and preparedness. The outcomes of optimization are designed to meet this moment, to enhance the bottom line, strengthen the global infrastructure and supply chain, and increase asset attractiveness to investors. And as a result of this research, we released a scorecard focused on implementation and measurement of these strategies at commercial and industrial sites. We talk a lot about market transformation at Fitwel, and that by leveraging rigorous research to inform our strategies, we are on a mission to make every building a healthy building, which is why we are so grateful to have a partner like Quadrille, whose values of responsibility, collaboration, and innovation are so closely aligned with our own mission and goals. Quadrille is receiving 4 awards this year, including the Industry Thought Leadership Award for their commitment to driving research on the impact of buildings on human health and wellness, the Fitwel Promise Award for having the most benchmark projects of all time, and 2021's highest scoring built and design projects using the commercial and industrial site V2.1 scorecard. Congratulations to Quadrille Property Group on these remarkable achievements. It is now my pleasure to introduce Jamie Gray-Donald, Senior Vice President of Sustainability and EHS at Quadrille, who will be joining us virtually to offer remarks today.
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you, the Center for Active Design. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm based in Vancouver, and sorry I couldn't travel for the awards, but we hope next year to be able to be there in person. I want to talk a little bit about my own journey, because I think it echoes some of the sustainability journey of commercial real estate companies. In the 80s, I worried about melting glaciers. In the 90s, I chained myself to some trees for some logging blockades. And then as I got to the 2010s, I realized that the most impact I could have was on the corporate side, and moved into commercial real estate in 2012. What I found in commercial real estate was that we often thought building by building, and we had to build business cases building by building. And so my focus in the early days was to get better data, and so we could start tackling this at portfolio levels and create permission for buildings to just go ahead with things that we thought were good. So we did a bunch of research that showed, validated once again, that green certification just created a premium, a rental premium, and a net operating income premium. When Quadrille was formed in 2016, we were a well-capitalized startup. We had 4 people in 2016, but in it was pension backed, and so we had 20 billion in assets come online in 2017. It was an interesting opportunity to really push that portfolio thinking. So we created a best platform, and within a couple of years, we'd certified 300 buildings. As my responsibilities grew, and we started thinking beyond the environmental in ESG, we really looked at the social side and said, where's the impact we can have, and who in this space do we feel is well situated? And it's no surprise to some here that we found a strong values alignment with Center for Active Design and the Fitwel standard. We've collaborated well in the journey, and I think it's been a really nice relationship of us suggesting improvements to the multi-tenant building module, and then research. I'd say most of my time is spent on alignment. Most of my time is spent figuring out how we can get alignment from the CEO through senior executive, middle management, and into the buildings. And I think we've been quite successful at that. And I think that through that success, we've enabled properties to really drive. One of our values is performance, and 2 of the properties that really embody the values of performance are South Core Financial and World Exchange Plaza, the 2 buildings that scored the highest. They have great leadership, and they've got the intense focus on delivering high performance. Out in, those are in Ontario. Out in British Columbia, I get to look at the mountains and the snow and the trees. So my focus is more on breadth. My focus is on how broadly can we take this health and well-being movement, and what's the data we need in order to get that. And there are markets like Toronto where scores matter. There are other markets where we think that the data is just evolving and the business cases are evolving. And so we committed to benchmarking all of our office and all of our multifamily buildings in Canada, and we'll increase that over time. What I'd say is that the more we do, the more benefit we see, and the more benefit we see, the more we want to go further. And I think I want to particularly thank Nisha and Mehrab on my team. I probably drive them nuts. We're always trying to go further, and every time we think we've got somewhere, we decide that we're going to go further. So thank you to them. The last point I want to say is that for us, success is enabling others to thrive. And we love the Fitwel standard because it helps our tenants and our residents to thrive. And we like the partnership as well because the more data we get, the more reports we share with the industry, we feel the broader the movement will be, and the more people globally have access to the type of information they need to impact their portfolios. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Jamie, and congratulations again. For those who may not know me, I'm Zachary Flora, the Vice President of Market Growth. I've been a member of the Fitwel team for the last 4 years, and I've had the privilege of working with many of our users, helping them adopt, implement, and scale their use of Fitwel. I've also had the pleasure of working with an incredible team here at CBED in a Day to drive Fitwel's adoption by the real estate and design community. The growth of the last 5 years would not be possible without individuals like Jamie, who have led the healthy building movement. Jamie represents Quadrille, the Fitwel champion and a member of our leadership advisory board. The Fitwel Champion Program, our signature program designed to support companies as they scale Fitwel, has grown to include over 24 active champion companies committed to using Fitwel across their portfolios, including companies like Quadrille, Harrison Street, and Oracle. Adding to our leadership opportunities this year, we recently launched a two-tier membership program that includes a Fitwel provider and a Fitwel partner level to better serve our community of architects, engineers, consultants, and other companies looking to support and advocate for Fitwel's mission. Our leadership advisory board, or LAB, has also grown as more of Fitwel's large-scale users are involved in supporting our new product development and growth initiatives. I want to take a moment and acknowledge and thank our new LAB members, Lendlease, Brookfield Properties, Harrison Street, Nuveen, Hudson Pacific, and Clarion Partners. To that end, thinking through our mission of market transformation, where occupant health strategies are fully integrated into design and operations of the built environment, we want to increase occupant health and increase the value of real estate. And it's been incredibly encouraging as we've continuously seen large-scale adoption of Fitwel on our platform and as a source of data and analysis. In fact, in 2021 alone, we saw a 145% increase from the previous year in companies with 10 or more registered projects on the Fitwel platform. At our core, we're a company focused on improving occupant health. In order to do that at scale, we need the technology and platform to facilitate that growth. So what do? Well, this year we launched new tools to support large-scale adoption of Fitwel and the analysis of our users' health metrics. Our users can now register multiple projects at one time on our platform and can benchmark all of those properties using a single tool. I want to take a moment and recognize Lendlease, who is the first company to utilize these tools to register and benchmark 10 projects this year. The launch of tools such as the portfolio-wide registration and benchmarking is really exciting for us as we move towards an accessible, inclusive, and expansive approach that spans the world in every market. As Joanna talked about, our Best in Building Health Awards correspond with Fitwel's inaugural launch date in 2017. Since then, Fitwel has seen steady growth in the number of certifications over the last 5 years, followed by a significant uptick starting in 2020. Last year in 2021, we saw a whopping 325% increase in the total number of certifications. And yes, whopping is the only adjective to do that number accurate. This is exciting for so many reasons. For one, it's great to see Fitwel's growth continue at an exponential rate. Two, it's important to keep in mind our mission of market transformation. We want every building and development to be designed and operated as a healthy building. And the Fitwel certification rate shows us not only the growing awareness of the importance of healthy building practices, but the growing adoption of them as well. Zooming in a bit on last year's rapid growth, another clear indicator of the adoption is demonstrated by looking at the total number of real estate and square feet that has been Fitwel certified. We saw a massive 288% increase in square feet that's certified since last year. With the increasing importance of measuring building health as it relates to ESG, the real estate industry is using the Fitwel platform to benchmark and certify their properties, to better understand the performance of their portfolios, and to use the information provided to the Fitwel platform to make strategic decisions about their investments. We can see another key area of growth is in multifamily residential. With a 122% increase since the year prior, certifications across multifamily properties and the developments is one of Fitwel's fastest growing asset classes. This will come as no surprise to some of us. With an increase in the number of people working from home over the past 2 years, and with commercial and residential occupants having a far better understanding of how buildings impact their health, there's increasing demand from residents for their homes to be optimized to support their mental, social, and fiscal health, and in general, improve their quality of life. We've been seeing this demand in the sector for a while, and now multifamily owners and investors are seeking Fitwel certification to attract and retain residents, improve resident satisfaction, and provide equitable access to healthy building practices across their portfolio. In short, we're seeing that people are driving the adoption of Fitwel, and real estate owners, investors, and occupiers are responding to that demand. From 2020 to 2021, we saw a 405% increase in the total number of occupants impacted. That is a 405% increase in the number of individual human beings who are benefiting from the positive health impacts that Fitwel certification supports. That's also a 405% increase in the number of people demanding healthy spaces, which means because of the leadership on display in this year's Best in Building Health Awards, we are well on our way to leaving a lasting legacy of building health for all. And finally, I'm going to come back to the idea of growth and market transformation. As you can see by the projects and people recognized today, Fitwel has certainly gone global. In the last few years, you can see the worldwide adoption of Fitwel through our list of champions and lab members and through our projects and module certifications. We have seen a 36% increase in the number of countries with Fitwel certifications from 2020 to 2021. And it's exciting to see countries like Taiwan, France, and Germany in the list of top 5 fastest growing markets. A final closing thought from me to everyone who tuned in today is that one thing is clear. Between the breadth of companies and projects that I've heard about today, coupled with the impressive growth metrics, Fitwel is scaling both rapidly and globally. With that, I'll turn back over to my colleagues, Karen Chen and Dylan Arciaga.
Thanks, Zach. It's really impressive to see all the amazing accomplishments we've had in just 5 years. There's a lot to be proud of. Before we move on to part 3 of today's program, Dana and I would like to recognize companies that have achieved some of the highest scoring projects of 2021. As you know, our Fitwel scorecards offer clear, transparent, and accessible documentation to help all users be successful in applying Fitwel across their real estate portfolios. And so the next group of winners represent 2021's highest scoring projects under their respective Fitwel scorecards. Let's kick off the list by beginning with our commercial interior space winners, made up of both international and domestic projects. M. Moser Associates is being recognized for applying Fitwel V2.0 built certification to City Tower 1 Bay East, a 15th floor structure serving 2,800 occupants in Hong Kong. This is the second year in a row that they certified a winning project under this scorecard. Under the V2.1 built certification, Takeda Pharmaceuticals is being recognized for their Sao Paulo location in Brazil. Their new office maximizes comfort and well-being for their employees and patients who occupy the building. And finally, for V2.1 design certification, I'm excited to debut new users, Peloton, along with their consultant, Corgan, for Peloton's 340,000 square foot interactive headquarters in New York City. Their office features 100% active workstations and access to parks, walking trails, and farmers markets. Each of these projects also represent 3-star certification ratings. Congratulations to our 3 commercial interior winners.
Next up is a group who represent the highest scoring projects in the single tenant category. First up, Microsoft with their consultant Alpha Sustainable Projects are being recognized for the highest B2.0 scorecard for Microsoft's campus in Herzliya, Israel. This 3-star Fitwel certified project is the first of its kind in Israel and the first Microsoft project to be recognized for Fitwel certification. Their campus prioritizes employee wellness by including outdoor spaces, workout classes, and healthy foods. And under the B2.1 design scorecard, Sun Clarella Corporation, with support from Green Matrix Consulting Company and UL, earned this designation for Hotel Sun Clarella in Kyoto, Japan. Kudos to these companies and consultants that raise the bar for single tenant scorecard users. Moving on to the multi-tenant based building awards, we are definitely seeing a similar global theme for the following international project winners. Fitwel Legacy champion LaSalle Investment Management received the highest B2.0 score on their 60 London Wall project located in the heart of London. Using Fitwel scorecards as a blueprint, the team focused on sustainability and the well-being of their occupants when retaining the structure and adding 4 floors to this postmodern office building. SBA Urban with Vesta Consulting boasts the highest scoring build project under the multi-tenant base building B2.1 scorecard for their highly impressive 3-star rated BLC2 Business Center in Kaunas, Lithuania. This structure became the first building in the Baltic states to receive Fitwel certification. Finally, Epic UK with Element 4 earned the highest scoring B2.1 design project for 217 Bath Road in the UK. The contemporary refurbished space features amenities such as a club room, gym, and cafe that encourage physical and mental well-being. Congratulations to all of our multi-tenant base building project winners. Turning towards our multi-tenant whole buildings, Projekt Wadowicka with Spectro Polska scored highest using Fitwel B2.0 scorecard with the Wadowicka 3A office complex in Krakow, Poland. The team turned to Fitwel to focus on the well-being of users and occupants, including access to healthy foods while complying with sustainable construction standards. And principal real estate investors were awarded the highest scoring built project using a B2.1 scorecard for Broadway Tower, a 19-story mixed-use project in Portland, Oregon. Obtaining Fitwel certification helped principal real estate investors address the growing demand for certified healthy buildings while improving tenants and community health.
And now for the project winners that made a name for themselves in the multifamily residential category. Under the B2.0 multifamily scorecard, UL achieved the highest built certification score for the Yuanxi Jiayuan building in Beijing, China. And under the B2.1, Newcastle Limited with SCB won the highest built certification score with the State and Chestnut apartment tower located in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. Residents of the tower enjoy a robust amenity program that is designed to improve physical and mental well-being. The highest design certification is achieved by the Hurricane Gulf Villa multifamily building in New Taipei City, Taiwan. A project by Hurzu Develop Company and Hurricane Construction Company with Green Matrix Consulting Company and UL. This is the first 3-star multifamily project in Taiwan and Asia overall. Kudos for creating spaces that improve the health and well-being of multifamily occupants. And lastly, the retail category. For the Fitwel Retail V2.1 scorecard, our build project winner is a Time Mall shopping center in Taoyuan, Taiwan, with Green Matrix Consulting Company and UL. And finally, CBRE is awarded the highest design project for Angel Central in London, UK. CBRE worked with the property management team, architects, and client to integrate a series of health and well-being strategies into the design.
Congratulations to all of the amazing organizations and firms that have been recognized so far. I would also like to extend a well-deserved congratulations to all of the projects not mentioned here today that have pursued and achieved Fitwel certification in 2021. It's truly astonishing to see the Fitwel impact expand and go global into new and exciting places. And now, we are going to turn this over to Sarah Carrera, our Director of Applied Research, to discuss where we are heading towards this year.
Thank you so much, Karen and Denalyn. Such an impressive list of accomplishments, and really a big congratulations to all of our winners. I have the pleasure of leading CFED's research team, which is responsible for investigating, analyzing, and reporting on healthy building trends to help drive adoption of the most impactful strategies that result in measurable outcomes. So I'd like to use this time to share some insights on a few of these key trends and how they are steering the healthy building movement today. The idea that the built environment impacts health isn't a new idea for us, but the demand has certainly changed. Integrating health promoting strategies into our buildings is something that actually rose in popularity back in the late 1800s when infectious diseases were especially pervasive. As a result, cities started to implement efforts that brought together public health and infrastructure planning. These efforts ranged from regularly cleaning city streets, increasing ventilation in tenements, and an effort that I'm especially grateful for as a city resident, building public parks. Central Park, for example, was called the working man's lung back when it was built in 1857. What stood 10 years ago when the Center for Active Design was first launched in terms of building health still stands today. While there is much we have learned over the past 2 years, COVID is not the only issue driving the healthy building movement. The conversation began and continues to move beyond the lens of ventilation. Healthy buildings must prioritize the holistic health of the occupants and communities that they serve. They do this by implementing evidence-based design and operation strategies that are tied to measurable outcomes across the 7 health impact categories featured in Fitwel. These categories range from reducing morbidity and absenteeism to supporting social equity. But one thing that has changed is that because of COVID, health has become a risk for business. And because risk management and mitigation are essential to the real estate sector, developers and investors are really waking up to the distinct understanding that they must consider human health in their business decisions, and that includes real estate. So what used to be a nice to have is now a business imperative. Early data suggests that on average, healthier buildings perform better in tenant satisfaction and stability, and also have a higher likelihood of tenants recommending a property. And this was a trend that was emerging even before COVID-19 turned our world upside down and transformed a nice to have into a quantifiable business risk. In fact, a widely circulated MIT survey found that there was a 4.4 to 7.7% increase in effective rent per square foot for buildings with healthy building certifications. To put that simply, Fitwel certification contributes to higher rent rates. The best in building health winners and many of the others tuning in here today truly understand this. But what's also interesting is that the market is moving faster than policy or regulation. The demand coming from individuals is going to shape the market. Individuals deciding whether they're going back to the office is really creating movement from owners before they are required to make such changes. As a result of this demand from both occupants and investor frameworks, we are seeing a shift in the real estate space in terms of innovation, as well as where investment dollars are going. This is in large part because of the wave of ESG investment, which is driving innovation across the real estate sector. As Joanna mentioned earlier, we're witnessing an increase in the stakeholders who are thinking about the individuals who are going into their physical assets. This creates a whole new motivation and really contributes to the drive towards market transformation. It brings about a complete shift of thinking. It's no longer a portfolio of buildings, but a portfolio of places where people live, work, eat, learn, heal, and congregate. This shift informs our research as we update, revise, and evolve our standards in 2022 and beyond to reflect this new normal. Another key trend I want to touch on briefly is the movement we are leading to quantify the health impact of ESG investments. Traditionally, health has been considered one factor within the S or social pillar. But as we all know, investments in environment and governance also have a positive impact on health outcomes. With this understanding in mind, we are working with our research and industry advisors to define metrics that better connect ESG investments with health impact. It took about 10 years to create a consensus around the metrics defining the E, or environmental pillar. And this is currently where we stand when it comes to integrating health into the conversation. Yet, there is growing demand for reliable metrics that define the role of health within the ESG conversation, and we are committed to supporting the effort to reach a consensus as quickly as possible, using what was learned from the environmental movement. In our investor report, which has already been referenced, that was published last year, 61% of the investors surveyed were using building certification systems, which is a great step towards defining and quantifying investments in health across the real estate sector. Third-party healthy building certifications will increasingly be relied upon to offer a viable framework for consistently tracking and integrating health-related ESG metrics. While consistent measuring of ESG is in progress, commercial properties have been leading the way in reporting on these metrics, given that they're the largest reporters on ESG initiatives in order to drive investment dollars. And while pre-COVID-19, demand for ESG considerations was highest among the commercial properties and workspaces, we're now seeing the demand among residential properties skyrocketing, which will only drive increasing demand for consensus. As a result of the intensifying focus on occupants, growing market awareness, and increasing reporting demands, investors and the real estate industry are looking for more reliable ways to evaluate the impact of ESG strategies. With public health sitting at the intersection of each of these ESG pillars, we see a real opportunity to evaluate ESG strategies through a public health lens and define a protocol for measuring impact. For example, when bike infrastructure is provided on site, does that have a positive impact on the proportion of occupants that opt to bike to work? This is a strategy that has both environmental and social repercussions, and we want to provide our community with an effective way to measure those impacts. By aligning on a common set of metrics, the industry can commit to validating both the health and financial outcomes of ESG investments within the built environment. This will be a vital effort as we work with all of you to accelerate market transformation when it comes to promoting health across the real estate sector. This is truly an exciting moment. And with that, I'll now turn it over to Brian, who heads up our ambassador program, to share a bit about our newest award category.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Ross, Director of Strategic Initiatives, and I'm leading Fitwel's customer success team after being with the Center for Active Design for over 5 years. As part of my role, I also head our Fitwel Ambassador Program, our worldwide network of professionals committed to integrating health within their work. Fitwel ambassadors are pretty impressive people. They come from a variety of professions, including architects and engineers, sustainability consultants, urban designers, property managers, and more. and project teams rely on them to help submit high-quality Fitwel projects that pass the rigor of the standard and achieve Fitwel certification. They are the ones on the ground, truly driving market transformation in a grassroots way. And in December, we welcomed our 3,000th Fitwel ambassador, marking a key milestone in our collective mission in the Building Health for All movement. For this first time, Best in Building Health is recognizing Fitwel ambassadors for their commitment to serving as leaders and active participants in Fitwel's healthy building movement. And so without further ado, let's celebrate our first ever Best in Building Health Ambassador Award recipients. I'd like to honor first Rachel Shipton of Cushman & Wakefield, who we will hear from shortly, who has been named the ambassador with the most certified projects of all time. Wait for it, an incredible 60 projects. I'd also like to recognize Carolyn Compton and Emily Fraser Smith. Both are Fitwel ambassadors at Corgan, an architecture and design firm who were part of the Peloton headquarters effort in New York City, which was the highest scoring project in 2021. And finally, a special honor this year goes to the company with the most ambassadors of all time, Perkins & Will. For this year's winners, you should be very proud of yourselves. And now I'd like to turn it over to Nadine Rashid, our Senior Vice President of Content and Product Development.
Thank you, Brian. Our goal with Fitwel is to motivate the entire industry to move towards the healthy building movement, which is why, as we near the last act of our program, I am honored to reveal the winners for all-time achievements among Fitwel users. We have 3 winners in this category. First up is the Fitwel Excellence Award, which recognizes the company that has achieved the most certifications of all time. For the 4th year in a row, this distinction goes to Kilroy Realty Corporation. The First Promise Award goes to Quadrille Property Group, which holds the most benchmark projects of all time. Finally, the Fitwel Impact Award, which recognizes the highest scoring project of all time, goes to Peloton Corgan for the Peloton headquarters building in New York. The building received 3 stars with a total of 137 points out of a possible 144 points. These companies and people, these leaders, are truly setting the bar for advancing health with Fitwel. Congratulations, everyone. I am now pleased to invite our final speakers to join Joanna for a panel discussion. Dan Santiago from Peloton, Vaishali Sampath from Kilroy, and Rachel Shipton from Cushman & Wakefield.
Thank you. So thank you to all the team for announcing the winners. Really amazing. Every year I'm amazed, but wonderful. And thank you to my panelists. Wonderful to have you all. We just heard about the incredible accomplishments all of you have achieved. So, and I think also the kind of breadth of achievement that you represent. So I'd like to start by having each of you introduce yourselves to our audience and a little bit about kind of your particular perspective. You're all coming from very different perspectives of the building industry. So I'm going to start with you, Vaishali, as you're next to me. So welcome. Thank you for coming from LA. Sorry, the weather didn't cooperate here in New York.
No worries. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this recognition. It's an honor. I'm happy to be here in person in New York. It's been many, many years since I've been here, so I'm really happy to be here with you guys. My name is Vaishali. I'm the Director of Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility for Kilroy Realty. So I think with our perspective, we are, building developers, owners, and operators. So for us, how we invest in our buildings and how that impacts our occupants and the communities that we operate in is really important for us. And so that's how we kind of think about our perspectives of building health. And with certification specifically, that is a really kind of valuable tool of how we communicate the way that we operate our buildings, right? It's how we communicate to our various stakeholder groups about how we set our sustainability goals and how we are performing as a company. And so that's kind of a high level perspective.
Great, thank you. Dan, next to you, you guys are a large employer. So I'd love to kind of hear your perspective as Peloton, who are also squarely in the health business, slightly different health business than us. But so yeah, Dan, and welcome to the Fitwel community. This is you're a new partner to us. So thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for such a welcome into the community. My name is Dan Santiago. I am the Director of Workplace Operations. So part of my job is really making sure that the experience for our employees, which are kind of like our customers, are high end. And for us, when we first heard about Fitwel through Corgan, it was really important for us, the mission statement of what Fitwel means. We absolutely aligned with it. And after going through the Fitwel process, for us, this is now a brand standard for all of our headquarters globally.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Wonderful. Rachel, to you, we just heard you've used Fitwel in 60 projects, so you probably know it better than I do. But I would love to hear your perspective from Cushman & Wakefield and kind of the part that you play in the industry.
Yes, certainly. Well, one, I need to give a little recognition to everyone on my team within Cushman & Wakefield. Wouldn't be here without all of the ambassadors at Cushman & Wakefield. So I know there are a bunch of you joining, but thank you all so much. I am here representing all of you. So one, I appreciate it. And then I need to ask Dan, what happened to those extra points? How come you couldn't get, all of those on your headquarters?
Definitely the next one.
Yeah, okay, perfect. But so at Cushman & Wakefield, I'll say we are a little bit different. We are a client services company. So where we come into play is we are here as our team specifically, we help consult on our Cushman & Wakefield managed properties, especially for our investor services and institutional clients. And so we're really here, one, driving their goals and initiatives, but also making sure that we are available to our Cushman & Wakefield managed properties on the operational and engineering side, and seeing even if the end goal isn't necessarily or they're not seeing the request from their ownership to become Fitwel certified, we have a checklist and we are giving recommendations based on some of the Fitwel requirements that they can go ahead and instill at a property level. So when it does come down the line, they're ready to get the certification.
Wonderful. So each of you have done something unique, your achievement. So we want to kind of dig into how did you do it, right? So that everybody listening can kind of take that next step for themselves. So I'm going to start again with you, Vaishali. So you guys have had the most Fitwel certifications for 4 years in a row, ever since we started. At Kilroy. So you really understand how to scale the impact that you're having across your portfolio. So can you kind of talk to us about how you did it, why you did it, where's the motivation? And then, yeah, let's stop there and we'll hear from you.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So as I mentioned earlier, we're not just developers, we're, as a REIT, we're longtime owners of our properties. And we are also managers of our properties. So we're not just financially invested in our buildings. We have a really kind of strong presence and a lot of operational control. And we have access to really kind of nimble capital. Our sustainability team, my team, has its own budget that allows us to be able to invest in certifications and even some capital projects that help us to achieve these certifications from time to time. But this is how we were able to sort of scale those projects, is because of that presence. I think secondly, as well, is the alignment in values. We have, in the last several years especially, have really redirected our investments into properties that are in the urban core market. And so we have a really walkable portfolio. Our average walk score of our portfolios is 75, which is up about 5 points from 2020. So it kind of gives you the idea of what direction we're going in. And that's some of the reasons why we were able to scale our certifications. I think the benefit of doing that is, we like to think about our ESG performance on a portfolio wide scale. That's really important for us because it's not enough to just kind of do it in one or two buildings. We need to show that we, as a company, we have a company ethos and a culture that permeates throughout an entire portfolio.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So we look forward to seeing what happens next year. So Dan, as you came in as new entries, and then you beat everybody else. So you guys, obviously, you're getting a lot right. I would love to hear about some of the strategies that you've implemented and that you've just said that you're going to now kind of implement across all of your other headquarters. I'd like to also hear like why you implemented those strategies and if folks are feeling it. Are they responding? Are your employees noticing the differences?
Great question. So for us, our experience is really ingrained in our culture. It's really big for us. And for us, it was when we had New York HQ coming up, it was a great opportunity, right? Because typically you have different types of buildings in real estate. And sometimes when it comes to looking at a building that's multi-floored, how can we align with Fitwel? And for us, it was a great opportunity to kind of really look at that. And part of it was partnering with our design architects, working with Corrigan, but also really looking at it from an extreme holistic viewpoint for our employees. So looking at where are we laying out the desks, where are we setting up the walking spaces within the space, also setting up outdoor workstations for them and making sure that when you're coming in to work, it's not kind of like in the office space type of setup, but it's really comfortable and it's really, as we're asking them to be impactful, it's impactful for them as well from a mental health perspective. So for us, it was really about opening our viewpoint on what does experience mean, and not that it's just about, catering today a luncheon, but more so looking at it from a full holistic, where as you come in, you're able to come in with a bike, park your bike there, go upstairs, use the gym. Then from there, go downstairs, have a great food and beverage type of program, get to work, and then access the outside deck, use it afterwards. So really looking at it from a 360 viewpoint. Once we set that, then it became our now design standard. So now as we just finished our Plano location. We're just finishing up our UK headquarters. It has just continued, and we continue to come with that viewpoint because really what Fitwel is as a standard has really aligned with our experience goals as a company.
Fantastic. Thank you. So Rachel, from your perspective of kind of client services, how have you seen demand change, your role change? Just kind of explain to us kind of like how that has evolved.
Yeah, certainly. And it's definitely evolved. And I'd say, obviously in the past 2 years during the pandemic. And so how we feel like we can best support our investor services clients is really understanding what their initiatives are and their long-term goals are. And what, in the realm of Fitwel, where I think a lot of our clients were focusing on, the energy, water, waste, we've really kind of been able to spin the story and say, no, this can help you holistically on your ESG goals. And so that's really from both a client perspective, but also then our internal network of Cushman and Wakefield managed properties, being able to go to our property managers with the tools and resources they have. We put a lot of time and energy and resources in created Fitwel ambassadors within our company, and really having along the same lines, our missions and values align with everything with CFAD. And so our own Cushman Wakefield team, who are now Fitwel ambassadors, are able to go and speak to our property managers on how they can better support their clients.
Fantastic. And I want to kind of, this whole thing, we've wanted to think about what's the future, right? I mean, it's been a pretty rough couple of years for everybody. So we understand that COVID has changed the landscape, right? It's changed everything, but it's certainly changed health. But I want to look forward. Like, how are you anticipating? What do you think is going to continue to evolve when it comes to health? And I'm going to start with you, Rachel, as someone who talks to a wide kind of swath of the industry. Where do you see this moving forward? Where do you see health as a priority, or is it going to start to diminish after COVID? I mean, just give us your perspective on the future.
Yeah, certainly. And I definitely think it is a priority. I don't see that diminishing. I think, there's a call to action. It's not, window dressing or nice to have now. Our tenants and our residents are requiring it, asking about it. And so that's where we've got to be well equipped as, managed properties, and being able to address those needs of what people are asking. I think a lot of what we're seeing now is to a performance-based metrics. And so where we can, within the Fitwel realm, whether it's, measure things in real time, it could be IEQ, et cetera. And I think tenants are going to, and residents are going to want transparency in that. And I think those align well with, CFAD's missions.
Great, thank you. So Dan, going forward, you have a lot of employees, you are a company that promotes health. So where do you see from both perspectives, right? Both from your internal perspective as a company that promotes health, but also as a large employer in order to attract and retain the talent that you need to be successful? Like, where do you see health fitting as a, kind of going forward throughout your business?
I think that's a great question. Obviously, I would be remiss to say that we are not a fitness company, but I think that when it comes to health, right now it is at the forefront of every employee's thought process, because anything when you're coming to employees and when it comes to retainment, it's about health. Every company right now is really promoting it, and for us, it's always been part of our DNA. So now all we're doing is just magnifying that. So whether that comes from looking at it from an ESG perspective or even an experience perspective, it has now become the brand standard, and it's something that we will just continue to push, because reality, to your point, it's not window dressing. It really is what the future is.
So expand a little bit on that kind of ESG, because the rest of us are primarily real estate focused, right? Whereas you are a company who are tenants, and you own real estate as well, or you're tenants in real estate.
Yeah.
So your primary kind of business isn't real estate, whereas the rest of us, I would say it is. And yet you're talking about ESG. So can you talk about how promoting the health of your employees is actually part of that larger ESG piece from your perspective as a company outside of real estate?
Great question. For us, I think that it really just, even though we are not in real estate, I think that it really is part of what Peloton as a company is doing, especially from a employee focus. Employees, I will tell you, are very adamant about asking what are our new initiatives when it comes to ESG, what are we doing, how are we kind of pushing ourselves forward, and we're very big about feedback from our employees and moving forward from that. So for us, we have now started a lot of different initiatives and working with third parties on looking at what does this look like for Peloton as a tenant in real estate. So it's actually something that we really are looking into and starting, and it's important because it's at the forefront of most employees' minds.
Great. Vaishali, you're kind of, we'll talk about ESG, but I also want to talk about kind of the future. Maybe ESG is the future, which it probably is, as it's going to contribute like $50 trillion of money will have ESG requirements. So can you just kind of talk about where you're planning for the future? Kind of what are your priorities as it pertains to health? Where do you see it on that trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, I think health is going to continue to be, a center focus, a primary focus for us, along with our environmental performance. I think it's a holistic discussion. It's not mutually exclusive. In terms of our stakeholders, what we're seeing is our investors are increasingly asking for this. We do a lot of investor disclosures. So it's, something that they're asking for. We partner with a lot of progressive tenants. So the demand for healthy buildings is going up. And then, as Daniel said, with employees, you want to provide like a better experience, especially now when it is really hard to retain top employment. So we're really focused on also giving our employees a better experience. The way that I think that we will continue to move forward is, I think I would talk more about our development side of things. When we are kind of strategizing our new development, our design and new development, and holding design charrettes, we usually talk about environmental performance. Now we're talking about health as well. And so I see that it's becoming standardized in our building design. and operations. And, our tagline is where innovation works. And so we have to create a meaningful definition about what innovation is. And you can't really do that without thinking about building health. So I think that's the future for us.
Fantastic. And then because we do have kind of like a diverse audience and some folks are still new to health, right? Even though we've all been doing it for a while now, I do feel like because of COVID, that we have an entirely new swath of folks in the industry who are coming to this for the first time. Maybe they weren't looking at sustainability. They aren't coming from a sustainability perspective. This is kind of new. All of it's new. I would love for each of you to kind of give folks an idea of how do they get started? What was the initial motivation for you guys to be doing this, if that's fair? But like, what was the motivation? What were some of the challenges in order to reach the status that all of you have reached as industry leaders? Can you give us a few ideas of that so that if people are starting out on this path, they have a really good idea of where to start, what they might have to deal with as challenges in order to reach this kind of industry leading perspective? And I'm looking at you, Charlie, so you're going to go first on this one.
I'm happy to go first. Yes, it's such a good question. I think the first thing, to do is understand what your company's goals are. What is their ethos, right? What is the leadership team? What direction do they want to go in? And then you have that kind of conversation to kind of develop, actually, what should I say? It's, sorry.
Is it about like aligning so that like what we find we have to do, or what we find to be most successful is where we understand kind of what the business goals are, and then we show how promoting health directly contributes to those business goals.
Correct.
So that we understand that real estate isn't about promoting health, where it certainly wasn't before COVID, it might actually be now. So we would always make the business case for health, understanding that the business of real estate is to increase the return on investment. I used to be a real estate developer. I understand these things. So how do you show that promoting health directly contributes to the overarching business goals? So that's what we have seen has worked. So, I mean, I'd love to hear if that's
no, you're absolutely right. I think, asking what is the market value as well of promoting health. I've had a lot of conversations last year with our property team the last couple of years who have come to us and said, hey, we want to, pursue these Fitwel certifications. Our brokers are asking for it because tenants are asking for it. So these are the kind of the cases that you want to make to your leadership team. And also talking about the risk for not doing it. We have the liability risk. So we do like an insurance roadshow every year. And last year, there was a lot of focus on indoor health, right? Or health in general, health and wellness in general. But there's also kind of your reputational risk and your market risk. How do you compete in the market without thinking about health and wellness? I mean, look at all of our kind of esteemed peers who are doing so much great work. We all have to kind of pull each other forward in that way, and your reputation as well. For us, our reputation is really important for us as a premier landlord. So, these are kind of things that you want to sort of discuss with your teams. That would be my best advice.
Yeah, no, I think that is the big shift of COVID, right? That health has gone from being this nice to have, that when I've done everything else, then I'll think about health kind of thing. That's where we used to be in the pecking order, I would say. And now the real estate community, investors globally, have seen the risk to not promoting health. That I know Jamie, when we spoke as part of the investor work that we did, he was saying now that the concern from Quadrille's perspective is around stranded assets, that if you don't promote health, you may have stranded assets. You may not be able to retain the tenants that you're looking for, that you may lose tenants to you probably will lose tenants to other properties that have those amenities. And so that's a big shift, right? It's a really fundamental shift to go from a positive to a risk. And I would say, as someone who wants to bring about market transformation on in health, we have a lot better chance of it now that it's a risk than when it was a nice to have. So obviously we wouldn't have chosen a pandemic to get there, but I think that we do have this opportunity. Dan, can you kind of talk about like, how did you guys decide to embark on this? What was the motivation? Yours is relatively unique probably because of what you do as a business. But how did you guys get started?
So interestingly enough, when we were in just the development phase of our new HQ in New York, a lot of it was, ours is always going to be very ingrained in experience, but more so what happened was that the experience portion was really a seed when it came to this. And the fruits of that was kind of our design language and how we've changed it based on this. So looking at making sure, like, for example, we've done more communal spaces, setting up these little really nice to have nooks and places where a person's able to work, where it allows them to be extremely collaborative. But guess what? They're not sitting in a small cubicle. They're next to a beautiful big window, so they're getting that level of daylight. And so for us, when we just started the developmental phase, that's really where it came from. And then based on Fitwel, we kind of started to curtail our design language based on that. So that's where what we have now, the fruits of that labor, is what we have in New York HQ.
Fantastic. I think we might be moving in. We don't have an office right now.
I want a tour of the space.
Yeah, it's just down the road. Fantastic. So lastly, to you, Rachel, I think we rely on you and all of the consultants to really be that kind of conduit of the knowledge. And I know that that's been a, kind of a steep learning curve, because I don't know about you, but I wasn't educated in health. I was educated in architecture. Nobody mentioned the fact that we were going to be impacting people's health when we were designing buildings. So can you kind of talk about, from that perspective, kind of how you guys got started, and then how other folks can kind of join in and carry this movement forward?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think it is, for my team especially, I think we have a passion for health and wellness. And so whether or not we started with the team having, a deep bench of knowledge of Fitwel or any other certification, it's something that definitely aligns with, our personal, I guess, visions, missions, and really, going back to those ethos. And so I think once you kind of, spend time learning and, the research that you all do, it's not hard to draw the line or connect the dots to why, buildings should be doing this. And I think going back to, one of the questions is, any barriers. And I would say same thing, where we're really seeing that is, just the risk. So most of our clients are, have investors, and so it's basically, if you don't do this, they could, lose out. And so it's really, this is something that we help sell and help them hit their initiatives and targets as well.
Fantastic. So we're going to wrap the panel up, and I really appreciate all of your insights, and I really appreciate you sharing them also with the kind of the Fitwel community that's joining us online today. Hopefully next year this will all be in person, because wouldn't that be great, for every reason. So yes, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you all also for leading the industry. I mean, you guys really are leading the industry. We are there translating public health for buildings, but we don't have assets. We don't run, buildings or have employees that we have to, be concerned about when we're creating new headquarters and so on. And so we can't do it without you. We really do see you all as our partners, and we really appreciate that. So thank you all. Thank you for the panel, and thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Vaishali, Dan, Rachel, and of course, thank you so much, Vaishali, Dan, Rachel, and of course, Joanna, for such an inspiring discussion. As we're approaching the end of our celebration, I'm honored to be here to summarize our successes and our look forward. It is clear that transforming the marketplace in the coming years requires a collective movement of healthy builders to prioritize a healthier, equitable future with an integrated human-centric approach. 2022's Best in Building Health leaders are paving the way by designing, developing, and leaving a legacy of building health for all. Occupants and healthy buildings have been a part of a transformational moment in 2021 with tremendous growth and adoption, and we work every day to refine the impact, definition, and relevance of our work. As our team presented and discussed, we have seen the changes in 2021 and the excitement around Building 22 defined by the following themes. Occupants driving demand. Health has shifted from a nice to have to a need to have. The pandemic has brought to light what we've always known. Public health is a risk. As a result, occupants are demanding healthy buildings, not as a luxury, but as their highest priority. This has had a dramatic impact on all sectors, with residential sectors seeing the most dramatic rise in demand. Increased adoption of Fitwel. Fitwel offers a data-driven, metrics-focused approach that addresses health holistically without any barriers. With a 325% increase in the total number of certifications last year, we're already on our way to market transformation. Emphasis on defining and measuring health in the ESG equation. ESG is an ongoing market driver, accelerated because of COVID-19, and health sits at the intersection of all three pillars and must be part of the conversation. In 2022 and beyond, we will continue to work with the real estate industry to coalesce around metrics that connect health with each pillar of ESG in order to drive market transformation. And the last theme, global expansion and adoption. Fitwel is expanding globally and rapidly, as is clear from our list of champions and lab members, our roster of winners, and the 36% increase in the number of countries with certifications from 2020 to 2021. We strive to change the way the world looks at buildings and sites to always include the definition of what makes healthy buildings. As Joanna said in the beginning, it's through our collective efforts and with an integrated human-centric approach that we can meet the moment, meet our mission, and build lasting change in 2022 and beyond. As we close, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to the Fitwel team for their efforts to make this virtual celebration the best that it can be. To Renato and the property team at Penn One, and of course to our ongoing partnerships that are foundational to Fitwel's impact and expansion. Finally, thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today. I hope you found something to inspire you to remain steadfast in your commitment to creating human-centric buildings for a lasting, equitable future. And we encourage you to mark your calendars for March 23rd, 2023, when we will be hosting the next year's Best in Building Health celebration. Goodbye.